All right, everybody, we're good to go.
So watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Shoes on, up in the mood, cup of milk, let's rock and roll. Kick out, get the drum, rolling on like a rolling stone. Sing song when I'm walking home, jump up to the top of the brown. Ding dong, call me on my phone, nice tea, and I'll get my ping pong. This is heavy, can't hear the bass, boom, I'm ready. Life's sweet as honey, get this beat treated like money. This song, all alone, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm down, you know I go. Hey, let's go. It's all in the stars tonight, so we bring down fire, set the night light. Hey, shining through the city with a little fucking star. Light it up like dynamite. Whoa, bring a friend, join the crowd, whoever wanna come along. Word up, top to top, just move right up the wall. Their light, sky's alight, so we dance with the break of dawn. Ladies and gentlemen, I get the license, so you should keep your eyes on the ball. This is heavy, heavy, can't hear the bass, boom, I'm ready, boom, boom. Let me see this party, yeah, this beat to treat like money. This girl, all alone, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm down, you know I go. And let's go. It's all in the stars tonight. So we bring the fire, set the night light. Hey, shining through the city with a little fucking soul. Light it up like dynamite. Whoa,
Welcome to Animation 101. My name is Lyndon Sylvester, and I am your host. Please take a few moments to review the TAP Virtual Creed. We show respect. We take care of technology. We focus. We participate. We own the story, and we attend group. And now, please take a few moments to review the logistics for today's webinar. Note that we will be going over payment in just a moment. Make special note that the chat feature is disabled. You will be able to ask questions to our guests through the Q&A option. Check out the instructions in the chat. Before we launch into the class, I want to invite Lori to share information about how you will be paid for today's class.
Hi, everybody. As it says, I'm Lori, and I'm the Managing Director at the Animation Project, and welcome. So everybody that's here right now will be getting a $10 gift card. So make sure that your name has been recorded properly, and that be sure that your Zoom name matches the name you registered with. After this, we're going to download everybody's addresses. We're going to start to fill out envelopes. And next week, we're going to get our gift cards and fill the envelopes, and we're going to mail them to all of you. The cards will be mailed between February 3rd and February 5th. If for some reason, though, you don't receive your card, which we don't anticipate happening, you can email tapincentives@theanimationproject.org. But we won't be checking these emails until February 10th, so try not to write before then. It's great to have you here. Thanks, Lyndon.
Thanks, Lori. Now, I'm happy to introduce today's co-facilitators, Brandon and Steph.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. My name is Steph.
and I'm the Community Relations Manager and Lead Art Therapist at TAP. Who are you, Brandon?
Yeah, and I'm Brandon. I'm an animator here at TAP, and my specialty is rigging.
Awesome, thanks. And thank you, Lyndon. So just like we do in every TAP group, we have an opener. This is a question we ask or a short activity we do to kind of get the ball rolling and the creative juices flowing. So we're going to ask you this morning to think about what community means to you. Click on the link in the chat and share 2 to 3 words that describe what community means to you. When you get the link, you'll see our opening question and a space to type in your response. What does community mean to you? You'll have 3 spaces to answer, so you can answer up to 3 responses. Please be sure to click on the link in the chat now to enter your response. We'll provide a few minutes for everyone to think about their and respond. And after you submit your word, just come back here and we'll watch the community's words come alive.
Looks like we got a few submissions already. What does community mean to you? Belonging, togetherness.
Community means diversity and connection.
Community also means support.
Community means belonging and spirit.
Community means diversity and being needed.
Community means background and backbone.
Community means strength and heart.
Community means roots and differences.
Community means unity and protection.
Community means equity and neighborhood. They're coming in fast now. Wow.
Oh, there's so many words. I see joy in there, love, growth.
Hardworking, power, open-mindedness.
Neighborhood, encouragement.
Safety, home, people.
Relationships, trust, respect.
Some of them are so small now, I can't see. Compassion, companionship, mutual, civility, kindness. Amazing. Couple more.
I saw open-mindedness in there, camaraderie.
I see tap, encouragement. I may be repeating some. Group, heart, inclusion.
Acceptance, mental support, constructiveness.
Wow, I'm blown away by all of these responses.
These are awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Keep them coming for a few more seconds. And we are going to now transition into telling you more about TAP. So Lyndon, take her away.
Thank you so much, Steph. So, TAP is, today's goals. I guess I can take over this part. Today's goals. You will know what TAP is and all the ways that you can get involved. You will be able to identify occupations in the animation industry. You will know what creative arts therapy is and how it fits into TAP. We will create something together, and you will walk away with a toolbox full of resources. Now, TAP. What is TAP? So TAP is a therapeutic workforce development program. Why animation? Well, you could land one of these 10,000 jobs that New York City is providing. So New York City is committed to creating 10,000 animation jobs by 2024, which is amazing. We're the most creative city in the world. Make sure our young people have access to the 21st century animation tools, helps build bright futures for our next generation of artists, and keeps our city the global capital of culture. From Deputy Mayor Elisa Glenn. Levels of programming. So TAP has a series of programs to support you in learning animation and telling your stories. You're in Animation 101 now, which is the introduction to TAP. We create animations about each borough in our borough storytelling series. And we have an intensive internship program to learn the software to make an animation. More information about how to join each of these levels at the end of today's programming. And now it's time for creative engagement. Take it away, Steph.
Okay. Thank you again, everyone, for sharing your responses when we opened about community and all of the really important, powerful attributes that make up a community to all of you. And now we're going to take that idea of community to tell a story of a community. And so we need all of your help. So you'll see a series of poll questions pop up on your screen. Choose what you would like our story to include. We'll use the most popular responses to create the story. And then Brandon will show us an image of the story that we all created. So we have a choice of 3 community members, 3 environments, 3 obstacles that the community is facing, and 3 shared community strengths that our community uses to overcome obstacles. So take a moment to answer all 4 of the poll questions. Okay, we'll take about 10 more seconds. Get those answers in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, it looks like our community story stars a community of neighbors living in a mythical forest. They must defend their homeland, and the shared strength that they possess to do so is courage and bravery. Awesome. Now Brandon's going to show us in just a moment what an image will look like of this story. And this is kind of a way to generate story ideas, something that we use in groups. And it's a good thing to try at home if you want to tell a story. Just start with some categories and go from there, and then fill in all the blanks in between. And a lot of, I'm sure Ellen Sue, our guest speaker today, can attest to this, that in the very beginning of the storytelling process, this may be one of the the kind of exercises that professional animators might do to come up with different ideas, either a part of a story they already have and they have to fill in some holes, or if they're starting with a clean slate, this is a nice strategy to use. Here's your story. Now, because it's an image and not a moving an animation, we invite you all to take the idea of their courage and bravery as a strength and use your own creativity to imagine how they might defend their homeland using courage and bravery if, say, there is some sort of a threat to their homeland coming toward them. Maybe they all pull up a shield, or they find a way to work together to get away from this threat. Or maybe they build something that protects their home from this threat. It's all up to you. Amazing. So you all created this story about a community in just a few minutes. And even if a response of yours wasn't chosen, your input matters and informs the outcome of the story. So we did this all together, and thank you. Now, Brandon's going to share how the animation industry takes a story like this and turns it into an animation.
So I'm going to quickly talk about the animation pipeline. The animation pipeline is the steps involved in creating an animated film. And like Steph said, we start out with an idea. So in this case, we'll take our fantasy mystical forest with a neighborhood defending their homeland. So in the animation pipeline, we would take that idea and we'd flesh it out into a full-fledged story. We'd present it in front of our coworkers, and we would polish it until we get a nice, clear story with a beginning, middle, and end. We would go into our storyboarding phase, and we would draw it out. This would be the process of showing what exactly it is that we want to see on screen, including like camera positions and positioning of objects and characters in the scene.
And how could you use the image that we created today to kind of turn that into a storyboard?
I think that we could use that in the sense that we can, with the image that we had, we could see the incoming threat. We can see the asteroid, and if we had a little more control of the camera, we can see perhaps the asteroid is coming towards the camera. There's a lot of room to explore when storyboarding with that. From there, we move into the animatic, which is pretty much a sequence of all our storyboards for the film put together. So we get a rough idea of what the film would look like. And from there, we move into design. Design would be finding out how we want our forest to look, how we want our characters to look in the final film. Seeing if we want to go with a more realistic style or going with a more cartoony style. And that is all of pre-production. From there, we move on into production, starting with layout. Layout is the process of recreating scenes in your storyboard by using simple shapes. This is just to, again, get a rough idea of what your scene is going to look like in 3D, but you're only using shapes like cubes and spheres to represent the more complex objects that will come in the future.
Brandon,
Yep.
say you have that whole big group of neighbors in our community. Would you need to rig those to make them all move, or how would you pull just some out? How would you make that look realistic?
Within layout or later on?
Either one. Would we pull out like a main character, few characters, so that the viewer can kind of like concentrate their focus on some, or is there a way to highlight the whole community?
Yeah, each character that's of importance to the film would end up being rigged. less important characters might have more simplistic rigs, and we would mostly just see them in the background. Oftentimes, they could always be auto rigged to save time. After layout, we move into R&D. R&D is research and development, and this typically has to do with any more complicated parts, like VFX in the film. For example, if our, or in this case, with our story, if we wanted like really realistic leaf movement, perhaps we could devote some time to figuring out how leaves fall, how it's influenced by wind, and try to come up with a realistic simulation for that. Next, we go into modeling. So modeling is just the process of creating all the objects that we will have in our film. This includes our environments and our characters. Texturing is the process of adding color and material properties to those objects. So glass is transparent, and we have skin textures that look like skin, and when light shines through, it changes the color slightly. Things like that. After texturing, we move into rigging. Rigging is just the process of putting a puppet into the 3D character. This allows it to be moved later on. So from there, we move into animation, where the animator will then move that puppet to try to recreate realistic movement. After animation, we move into VFX, where we have things like fire, sand, snow, cloth simulation, just a wide variety of different topics that will all help impact our film. After VFX, we move into lighting. Lighting is pretty much just the process of putting in lights in your scene to recreate a more realistic environment. So you would have like a light for your son. If the group of neighbors in that forest have some sort of lanterns, we would put lights for those, things like that. And then we end our production phase with rendering. Rendering is just the process of saving out various still images for the film. We would be saving various types of images. So for example, we would only save images with just the shadows in our scene. We would save images with just base colors like our diffuse. We would, some other examples would be rendering out images with only reflective objects. And this helps us later on in the pipeline. So from there, we'll move into post-production with compositing. Compositing is just the process of taking all of our rendered images, the shadows, the reflection, refraction, all of that, and putting it together to make one cohesive and very beautiful image. From there, we see if there's any motion graphics we need. This can be anything from like a title sequence to credits, anything that requires any like 2D animation. Then we have color correction. This is the process of making sure every scene in our film has a consistent color throughout it, and has a consistent color to match with the tone of the film as well. And then with that, we reach our final output and our film is complete.
Thanks, Brandon. I can just imagine the beginnings of this story that we created and what that might look like as a final film. And that would be a really cool animation.
For sure. So now I'm gonna quickly just touch on the occupations within the pipeline. So in pre-production, we have some jobs like being a storyboard artist, a concept artist, a screenwriter, or a character designer. In production, there are jobs like being a layout artist, a modeler, which can include being a character modeler or an environment artist. There's texture artists, surface/texture artists, and map painters. You can be a rigger, which you can work with motion graphics, motion capture. You can be a motion capture artist, or you can be a character TD. You can also be a cloth and sim artist. You can be an animator, which includes being a technical animator, creature animator, or a character animator. There's lighting artists, VFX artists, and render wranglers. In post-production, some compositing jobs include being a colorist, a rotoscope artist, a comp artist, and a motion graphics artist. And then we have some other jobs. Here, this is mostly for sound. They don't quite fit in the pre-production, production, post-production. So for sound, we have being a composer, a Foley artist, or a voice actor.
Thanks, Brandon. It looks like there's so many different ways you can work in the industry without actually animating, right? There's so many parts of the pipeline that you can be a part of. Now I'm going to talk about a little bit about what creative arts therapy is and how it fits into TAP, and what kind of makes TAP a therapeutic workforce development program. So all of our groups are co-facilitated by a creative arts therapist and an animator. So creative arts therapy, if you're not familiar, is a healthcare profession that uses the creative and expressive process of art making to improve and enhance the psychological and social well-being of individuals of all ages. As some of you may be able to relate, it's difficult to find the words sometimes, and sharing your story through creative expression can be healing in so many ways, and oftentimes it's a lot easier than using words. So that's what we do at TAP. We facilitate and support everyone involved in telling their story. Like I said, we are a team of creative arts therapists working alongside professional animators. We create safe and productive spaces for participants to tell their stories and be part of a supportive community. And we also support the professional growth of all of our participants, who some of whom work up into the program and become interns and graduate with us. Creative arts therapists are artists themselves, and so we are able to collaborate with the animators and the participants to build the most meaningful stories that are the participants' stories. They're their stories to tell. And before we get to the guest speaker, I just wanted to mention, I forgot to mention that, you know, especially now when it's so hard to connect and connection is so important, these types of groups that are supported by a creative arts therapist and an animator, where you can really tell your story, be creative, and be supported and celebrated and encouraged, is really, it's really important to have these types of programs. So we're just thrilled to offer them to you. And with that, I will pass the mic over to Kat with our special guest speaker, Ellen Sue.
Thank you very much, Steph, Brandon, Lyndon. Your workshop and your conversation on the creative arts therapy is very insightful. My name is Kat, and I'm the Industry Outreach Advisor for the Animation Project. And I have the absolute pleasure of introducing you all to some of the most exceptionally talented and fellow professionals within the industry over these next few months. It's truly my pleasure to invite Ellen Sue back into this online space. Ellen is a very talented director and designer, and we're thrilled to have her share her career path with us, as well as offer advice to every single one of you on how you can pursue a career in the world of animation, games, and visual effects. As Ellen and I have our own conversation, I invite you all to send through your wonderful questions, as Ellen looks forward to answering them for us all. So Ellen, without further ado, I'd obviously love to jump in, because I know we're limited on time and space, and we obviously want to get to spend as much time with you as possible. So my first two questions for you as we have you introduce yourself is, where does your role sit within the animation pipeline that Brandon just referenced earlier? And two, how did you get into this exciting industry? If you could kindly expand into your career path, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I guess as I do two things in my title, and that's directing and design. So design comes quite early in the pipeline when you're looking for a style, looking for, what kind of characters you want in your piece. But then the other part of my title, directing, I'm kind of there from the get-go all the way to the end. And what is directing? Directing is really making sure that you have a vision. You know where you want to take it. You know who these characters are and what they would or wouldn't be doing. When somebody asks you, how does this character cry? What kind of performance they should be doing. You're giving that kind of direction to your team. And a lot of my job as a director is finding reference, actually, so that I can better convey what kind of vision I like, or I'm imagining. And yeah, to remember also that it is a collaborative process, and to listen to my team and work together with my team to make sure that we're putting the best project forward. In terms of how I got here, I guess let me just share my screen and show you guys a little bit of my work.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and you definitely highlighted a very important factor about this industry is the element of collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also something to learn, that I've had, a little bit to learn, because as a designer, I often have an idea of what I want. And once you get into a directing role, you really have to listen to the collective. And it's not just about executing my own specific vision, it is collaborative. But yeah, so some of my work over the last 7 years that I've been in this animation industry. Most recently, I was director and designer at a New York animation studio called Nathan Love. I currently teach juniors at the School of Visual Arts, where I help students develop their short film ideas. We cover, story development, concept art, storyboards, animatics, and since I started teaching, 2 of my student films have been finalists or won an Student Academy Award. So that's very exciting. And I'm also the co-lead of a nonprofit called Women in Animation, where I organize a lot of informative industry events and build our Discord community. So I do a lot of different things. And how did I get here? I'm going to attribute it all starting like kind of summer of sophomore year, where I applied to 50 internships and I heard back from 2. I just had no experience, but it was my foot in the door. And the next summer, 2012, I landed an internship at Pixar. It was in their PUP program called Pixar Undergraduate Program for Technical Direction. And that was an amazing experience. Senior year, I made a short film with my thesis partner, Kyle Moy, called Spacebound. It did very well, screened at film festivals all around the world, published in animation magazines. But shortly after graduation, I had this identity crisis. I realized that I didn't like being a 3D technical artist. My true passion was in design and 2D animation. And so I had to switch gears, revamp my portfolio. I freelanced all over the world for about 3 years. And after seeing how all the different studios operated, seeing their work cultures in 2016, I put down roots at a studio called Nathan Love, because I wanted to grow with a team. And they were small enough that I could take on a lot of responsibility. I could have a lot of say in the creative process, and people there just felt the most like family.
4 or 5 years later, here I am. I've directed commercials for NBA, Harry Potter on Broadway, Nickelodeon. And I think I'm back at another identity crisis. Last year, I quit my job at Nathan because I was feeling like I was ready to leave the commercial animation world. It was a steep learning curve, but I was starting to feel like I'm plateauing. So that's when I know I'm ready for my next adventure. And yeah, my current dream is to be a showrunner for an action adventure anime that I'm developing, which is going well. I've got some pitch meetings lined up, some pretty amazing people in my corner rooting for me. But I know these things take time, so I'm just being realistic and interviewing for a couple of jobs that I feel I can contribute positively to with my experience, but also not be creatively drained so that I can keep hustling on my passion project. Yeah, that's me.
No, I appreciate that. And you abbreviated that so nicely. You really reference a point of, even as an artist at the more senior level, there's always that sense of identity crisis or a moment where you want to sort of like experience a rebirth with new projects and new ideas. And that's something I appreciate you speaking to.
Yeah.
Adding to that, you obviously mentioned Nathan Love, and you also shared your demo reel. Could you kindly, share with our wonderful participants what kind of work Nathan Love does, what kind of studio it is, and then I'd also love for you to, you did showcase your demo reel earlier. Maybe share with our wonderful participants, what is a demo reel and why it's important as an artist.
Yes. So many great questions. Okay, so Nathan Love is an animation studio in New York City. They do primarily commercials, but they are in, their goal is also in development and original IP, original concepts, projects. And in New York City, there's a lot of that work, a lot of commercial work, like if you've seen the 3D animated Fruit Loops commercials, if you've seen, I don't know, there's so many. I mean, like the NBA projects, we've done a lot of ID bumpers, little bumpers for Nickelodeon. So that kind of stuff all needs animation. Animation is not just Pixar feature films, right? It's in so many different things. And the kind of stuff Nathan Love is kind of known for is primarily character-driven stuff. So we do a lot of fun characters. We also, I know like Joe Berscano, the owner, and all of the directors are like really into stories as well. So whenever we are given a commercial project, we try to implement like how can the story better this project and further this message. In terms of demo reels, so I'm sure many of you are familiar with the term portfolio. Because animated projects are in motion, we need something that is in a movie. So a demo reel is just a movie portfolio. And you put together all of your best clips. You want to show just your best work, not that you have to show all of your work, just the best work, anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute. And the other important thing to put in your demo reel is your contact information. So who you are, what you do, and your email. I, as a director, as a hiring manager, I run into portfolios sometimes or websites that don't have your email. And you might have fantastic work, but I can't email you and I can't contact you to hire you. So important thing is however you put your work out there, whether it's Instagram, a demo reel, Behance, whatever, make sure you put your contact information.
Oh yes, that is very, very important. And as a fellow recruiter, that's something that I definitely look for in portfolios and demo reels. Actually, you've talked about hiring, and Martina, one of our wonderful participants, asks a really, really great question about the fact that, she is a communication design student, loves animation. Is it harder for her to get internships without an animation background? And so, that it does bring up an interesting point. So with that said, what are some recommendations you might have for those who are really, really enamored by the world of animation, but need to get their foot in the door? You know, do they need to study for it? You know, do you recommend specific software, specific programs?
Right.
It'd be great to share with our wonderful community.
Yeah, so I would say that because it is a work-driven industry, like it is based off of potential talent, whatever, the biggest thing is you have to do some kind of personal project, some kind of thing to say, yes, I am interested in this, but I'm also passionate about this, right? Like, because you won't really know until you do it, to figure out if you can actually do it as a job. And that's kind of what I had to experience with my internships, with my own personal work, was like, I learned the skill, I started doing it, and in the middle of like lighting or modeling or texturing or whatever it was, I was like, I'm not into this technical problem solving, like, and that's, you won't figure that out until you do it. So I would suggest, if you're interested in it, there's so many resources out there online, endless free tutorials. Everybody wants to tell you how to do something, right? Teach you how to learn a new skill. And so just watch what you think you're interested in and do a personal project. If you like a certain kind of show or a certain kind of style, you know, draw some stuff in that style, be inspired by what you love. But you do have to show that work.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. And personal projects are always something that we look for as recruiters or acquisition specialists, you know, trying to hire for specific opportunities as they come up. So as a designer, could you kindly maybe reference, you know, what a typical day might look like for you? And then also, as a director, could you kindly reference what a typical day might look like? You know, because I imagine it does fluctuate depending upon what your role and responsibility might be.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a designer, I primarily do character design, but I can do both. I've done both in the past. It's really like listening to the brief. So if I'm designing a character, who is the character? What's their description? What's their bio? And the director can only give you so much. Part of it then is also like, thinking of stories in my own head, you know, thinking about how this character could react in different situations, and start developing story in that way. You know, I think everybody in the pipeline contributes to the storytelling in some way. And I just have to keep exploring, you know, because it's your job as a designer to like not just try one option, but try looking at it from all different angles. And to give those different options, explore their outfits, explore their hairstyles, all of that stuff. But ultimately to the goal of, does this make sense for the story? As a director, you know, when we first start, we hear what the goal is, what the dream is, whether it's a client with the goal of selling a certain product, or if it's the writers that want to tell a kind of story, they want to tell a certain moral lesson. We listen to that and we just figure out what the best way is to tell that story. Because with visual storytelling in animation, or films, whatever, the way you tell a story is a little bit different than you would in a book. So really have to think about, like, you know, who are the actors you cast, and those actors can be designed, right? What's the kind of music that you want in the mood, and what's the lighting? How do you order each bit of visual information that you give your viewers, right? So like, to get them to understand a character, you might need to know their backstory. You might need to know the reasons why they're doing the things they're doing. And you also need to know where they end up at the very end and how that character gets there. So it's like a broad sense. And then on a day-to-day, obviously you you review your team's work, you make sure everybody's staying on path to that story. A lot of meetings, a lot of emails.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of nice to jump back and forth between, you know, designing sometimes where I get to just do, and directing where I have to tell other people to do. But yeah.
Awesome. No, thank you for sharing. Oh, you're all asking such great questions. I've got a two-parter for you again. So Lord asks, I'm just curious, exactly how do you know which clips are the right ones to incorporate into your demo reel? And then Mariah was asking, you know, where would you put, or how would you put your contact information? How would you incorporate that into your reel or into your portfolio?
Okay, so the easy one, contact information, beginning and end, just a little bit like a still image, or some people make it fun and they like animate, you know, that contact info's animating on, and or there's a little character that introduces, but anyway, beginning and end. And then in terms of what you put in there, stuff that you really want to do more of, generally, you try not to put things on your reel that you don't enjoy doing, because that shows in the workplace. You know, if you get hired for something you don't like, and you might not do the best job, and then they might have a negative impression of you for future jobs. So try to just put stuff that you want to do more of and you're really passionate about. And I also like to give, you know, because the demo reel is like a summary of you as an artist. So trying to vary the kind of work that I show as well. That, you know, I have that clip of the Nickelodeon project, was very action packed and 3D, but then I also have 2D textual animation, both of which I love doing. Sometimes you see reels that are very repetitive and it just feels like a waste of time. Like, I've already seen this project, I don't need to see it again 15 seconds later, you know? So yeah, it's curating what your best work is and a variety of your work and stuff you really want to do.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. That's incredible advice, particularly for the demo reel. So hopefully you're all taking some notes out there. Brittany asks, do you have any advice for those searching for opportunities or internships during our current COVID situation, and obviously during these rather disheartening times? I myself have some thoughts, but would really love to hear from you, Ellen.
I think it's very exciting right now to be a freelance or whatever artist, because the entire country of opportunity is open to you. And I've applied to positions, you know, in LA, in Canada, in wherever. So I would say the places I'm looking on is LinkedIn a lot. I'll follow studios I'm really interested in, and I will be notified immediately if their job positions come up. I also like to use Discord communities. If you're not familiar, Discord is kind of like Slack. It's a messaging platform, and people can create groups of similar interests. So there are lots of animation communities. If you've heard of Lightbox Expo or CTN, they have their own Discord communities. Lots of artists are on there. It's free to join. And they have a ton of great things like artists drawing together, people posting job opportunities that they hear of. And that is a way to network and also hear of opportunities. You know, like you could join a drawing party, make friends with some artists there, and potentially if they like you, if you become really good friends, they like your work, you never know who they are or where they are, and they might introduce you or recommend you for a job that they're open to. Like, that's how that works, right? Like, you network, you don't know what that's going to lead to, but it always, you know, connects and expands. So Discord, LinkedIn, social medias, yeah, and just, you don't have to go to a 4-year college to gain a network. People have done it on Twitter, so.
That's very, 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 very well said. And I definitely want that to resonate, especially for those of you who might be in college and are pursuing a different field as well. There are still ways in which to pursue avenues into the world of animation that is not your standard four-year opportunity. A lot of studios, which once were on the other side of these, disheartening, difficult times, do offer entry-level opportunities to train, to learn, to absorb, and to also build upon your network. So thank you for highlighting that, Ellen. What else am I going to ask you next? Mwahaha. There are a lot of really wonderful questions, so I'm trying to figure out the best way in which to ease into the next one. Rashi's asking, how do you recommend getting into the animation industry? What are some suggestions you might have? We've obviously talked about networking. We've talked about, using social media and online platforms with which to connect with others in the industry. What are some other suggestions you have for those who are sort of learning about animation for the first time?
I think it's just doing. There's so many apps and softwares that are free to use. So for example, Toon Boom is a software that people use for storyboarding and for animating, or Storyboard Pro and Toon Boom is owned by Harmony, same company. So they are very quickly becoming the industry standard for making animatics, for storyboarding, for animation. And they have like hours of free how-to tutorials to get started, lessons on their website, because they want people to use their software. And also because animation is in a boom right now. So everyone's looking for animators. There's Blender, which is free to use and came out with some very awesome 2D drawing, like in 3D space kind of software. And that's fantastic. And so many of the people that are successful online right now, like they just started on their own. They picked up a software, they figured out how to utilize it to bring to life their ideas and their visions. And they just kept doing it, like every day, every week they post something new, and they get traction and attention and they set trends. And so if it's something you're passionate about and you want to tell those visual stories, you can do it with whatever means you have available to you.
That's very well said. There are so many free softwares out there online that all of our wonderful participants and ourselves have access to. So it's about taking advantage of those opportunities whenever it's possible. So I appreciate you sharing that, Ellen. So we do have a couple more minutes left. We're getting asked so many incredible questions at the moment. And Rachel more recently asked, do you have any recommendations on how to cater your resume and cover letter for production or development positions, even if you don't have that specific experience? I do have some thoughts myself, but I'd love to hear what you recommend, Ellen.
Yeah, just coming out of catering many different resumes and portfolios to different job titles, I think it's important to really read the qualifications and what the job listing is asking of you. In production, I think it's important to be organized. It's important to be able to be on top of schedules, be able to use certain softwares too, because I know like some production roles will ask like, we need you to know Shotgun or whatever. And that's all organizing. It's making sure like, what all the shots are, what the assets are, when they're due, yada, yada. I would say that if you don't have any experience in animation, and you want to get into a production role or recruiter role or some kind of management role, it's very important to actually have experience. And you could do that by offering to produce for a student film or, a passion project. Find those online communities. There's many people that is like, I want to make this short film, but they're only one part of that pipeline. See how you can jump in and help with that, so you do get that experience out of a job position. And that shows drive, that shows that you really, really want this, and that experience is invaluable. I don't know how, I've been in interviews where recruiters are like, I get these applications about people saying, I'm so interested in animation and I would love to learn more. And like thinking about it from their perspective is like they have lots of applicants. Probably many applicants already have experience. Why would they give you an opportunity when you don't have any? And again, it's like, it doesn't have to be professional experience, but like something you take on the side.
Very well said. And something else I would add, for those of you who do have client service skills, and that sort of relates to whether you've worked in retail or you've worked as a barista in a coffee shop, these are all applicable skill sets that you can incorporate into your resume, into your cover letter, so as to showcase your strengths, because a lot of studios and a lot of companies will look at those as transferable skills that you all have within the industry. So thank you.
Soft skills, I think, highlighting soft skills, especially in the management, like, can you speak tactfully? Like there's certain words like that, like speaking tactfully with all different levels of artists, and I'm trying to think, communication skills. Yeah.
Exactly. So my last question for you, because unfortunately we're out of time and we obviously want as much time with you as we can have. But what is some final word of advice that you might have off the back of everything we've sort of referenced for our wonderful participants during these rather, sometimes quite heavy times? I'd welcome some thoughts on your end as to, how you manage, some of the more difficult uncertainties that we might come across, or would welcome your perspective.
Yeah, I think life is short, and I think that we should all be doing what we're really passionate about. I think visual storytelling is supremely powerful in our world, in our society. It's how we shape culture, how we shape the way we think, how we shape, how we treat our neighbors. And so I encourage everybody to wield that power with responsibility and compassion. And if you have a story you want to tell it. If you have something you've always wanted to do, say it out loud. If you want to make a film, if you whatever, like, say it out loud, and then figure out the little steps it takes to get there. I think making an anime was a passion of mine since I was a kid, and I just realized, I just felt like, oh, it's not realistic. We can't make animes in America, and I mean, not to, everything I did to get to where I am now makes me who I am, and those experiences that have enriched me. But I also think, like, what if I just stuck to my guns and my passions back then, and I could be at the forefront of something. So just, if you're passionate about it, keep going. Yeah.
Beautifully said, and very, very inspiring words. Be compassionate too, and lead with compassion as much as possible. As always, Ellen, it's such a pleasure having you here. We always want more and more time with you. So thank you so much for spending some time. There were a few unanswered questions that we do have within the chat space. So we are going to save your unanswered questions and try to address them next time. So kindly watch this space. But thank you so much, Ellen, once again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Great.
Bye, guys.
Bye. And I'm going to defer now to the lovely Lyndon, Steph, and team. So I'll let you all take it away.
Thank you, Kat, and thank you, Ellen.
Thank you so much, Kat and Ellen. We will now transition to our closing ritual. We only have a couple minutes, so we're going to invite you all to answer this question on your own, within yourselves. What is one thing that you want to take from this community here today to bring to your own? We've been a community for the last hour. We've learned about TAP programming, the animation pipeline. We created a story of a community, and we learned so much from Ellen Sue. So think about what's one thing you want to take away from this community, this 1 hour that we shared today, to bring back to your own community. Once you have that inside, you're thinking about that, we're going to transition to our closing information to take with you along with this one thing. You have many more resources to also take with you.
Thank you so much, Steph. So, thank you for coming, everyone. Please have a great weekend. And please remember to stay connected through our social media so you don't miss any future opportunities. And check out our resources to learn more about what we shared today. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Keep in touch.